Welcome, everyone. This is Character Fight Night Recharged.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Character Fight Night, the show where your favorite fictional characters battle head-to-head in stipulation-style combat. We thank you for joining us for a new season, Season 3. This season, we are calling it CFN Recharged. My name is Josh, and joining me, as always, at the desk is Jim.
What's going on, everybody? It's always good to be back here at the CFN Arena.
And we'd like to give a very warm welcome to our new desk analyst, Carson. Carson, welcome.
Long-time listener, first-time recorder.
Caller. I was going to say.
He just kind of showed up. He's
Yeah,
like,
right.
I've been listening. No, we're very excited to have you on here. We have a great night of fight for you. And
Oh, that's why you guys call
A great,
it that.
it all makes sense, right? A great night.
I was wondering.
a great night of fighting characters.
pull the curtain back a little bit. That's super
You
secret.
know, now it kind of feels a little on the nose.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything better.
No, I think that was perfect.
So before we dive into the fight and talk about that, let's go over the new rule system, Jim, because we did change a few things here at CFN. We got rid of the ring.
Yeah. Like arena is one thing that changed.
Yes, the arena itself. No more wrestling ring. Imagine it like Legend of Korra, bending tournament,
Dragon Ball Z.
My Hero Student Festival.
Pretty much just about any fighting anime that has some sort of tournament in it.
Yeah.
That's the ring that, the arena that we have.
Or
so.
any anime fighting video game where they're just like in a circle fighting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's probably a good way to put it.
So that is what we're looking at now.
But we're
no more
still
ring.
keeping the stipulations, though. So we will still be doing some stipulations. We may
Yes.
not lean as heavy into the wrestling stipulations, but we're still going to kind of have that to kind of help drive this.
So there's no like concussion protocol or anything like that.
There's never been, dude. Are you kidding me? Like,
For the fans, yes.
yes, yeah. You're right.
For the
Excuse me.
fighters.
For legal reasons, we do have to say for the fans. Yes.
They sign a waiver.
Yeah.
We're
they do.
good. No, but stipulations, some will matter. Some will be more fun, like for us, just throwing it in there.
Correct.
And then the round system, we actually implemented a round system that kind of helps us just guide the flow of the show.
Yeah,
if
instead
you
of
will.
listening
So-
to us talk for an hour about the characters, you get to listen to us talk for an hour about the characters, but with pauses between.
Split up.
Yeah.
Yeah, with that little like electric guitar riff.
Yes. But going back to the stipulations, we have a fun stipulation tonight. We have a planet for planet match, which means that the loser of the match will fork over their planet. So the winner gets the loser's planet, I guess.
I will say that I feel like in terms of like from what I know about their planets, like Apocalypse kind of seems like it sucks.
I mean, to be fair, like,
Thanos' planet seems pretty cool.
it also seems like it sucks because
What?
we'll
Oh.
talk about it.
Okay. I mean, he had a nice
Yeah.
garden. a
That's
little- a little
fair. That's
cabin,
fair.
a cabin.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't think
yes.
you
Yeah.
can find a single garden on Apocalypse.
But what if that garden is like the only thing on Titan?
Still better than Apocalypse.
It's just like domed, and the rest of the planet's just like
Yeah.
a molten.
It's just
like,
also
yeah.
Apocalypse.
He has a little garden on
Yeah.
Apocalypse.
He could have a garden on Apocalypse if he wins.
If he wins, yeah, he's like, this is what Titans left.
If anything grows on Apocalypse.
Death mostly.
So should be an interesting fight to say the least
Yeah.
tonight. But before we get into the actual match, we have to do the weigh-in. We have to talk about the characters. And to do that, CFN's very own voice of the almighty, Mr. Metatron, Wade Hunt, is actually standing by at the weigh-in station. So let's go ahead and send it to him.
Stepping up to the scale, Darkseid. Darkseid weighing in at 1,815 pounds, standing at a height of 8'9".
So yeah, as you see, we've got Darkseid sitting up here. Massive guy. Probably in terms of like the DC universe, one of the most deranged, just dark characters. Originally created by the late Jack Kirby. So rest in peace to him. One of the best creators of comics.
I think in terms of size, he's a little bit bigger than Shaq.
Sometimes, yes.
A little bit.
But not bigger than Steel, though, right? The Shaq's superhero
that's
character.
right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Jesus.
Probably for good reason.
It really, yes. So he is a very, very large humanoid. I don't want to call him human because he's not. He is from the planet, as Carson kind of mentioned. He is from the planet Apocalypse, which is kind of something that he terraformed and created into his own fortress.
Talk about a name that's on the nose.
I know, right? Oh, yeah.
It was like he terraformed it into. It's kind of depressing.
It absolutely is. So, but I mean, kind of a few different things about him that we're gonna kind of go, touch a little bit more on. Is he does have incredible speed and reflexes, so he was able to take on the likes of Superman and the Justice League and stuff like that, kind of solo all of them. So we kind of were able to see that. He's got a very high intellect, which is why he is able to kind of fight only opponents that he deems worthy and ones that he knows that he's going to be able to beat, even though historically he's lost every big fight. But that's kind of the good evil type of deal. He does have a few other things like telekinesis and telepathy, and something that I imagine we're probably going to get really heavily into. But he's got something called Omega beams, and I would just leave that one at that.
Omega. I don't know where I was going with that.
I don't either.
So Darkseid sounds like an incredible hurdle for our other opponent to overcome, but we will see. But let's go ahead and see what he weighs in at.
And now, stepping up to the scale, Thanos. Thanos weighing in at 985 pounds, standing at a height of 6'7".
The Mad Titan from, Titan. He is a Titan.
Talk about on the nose.
Yeah, it's like they ran out of ideas. They're like, screw it. He's Titan. Titan. See how many times we can put Titan in there.
God, please no.
So, of course, we know he has the Infinity Gauntlets. However, we are nixing the Infinity Gauntlet for this fight. Just because to me, it's a little unfair with being able to warp reality and
Just take one stone. Give him the rest.
you only get one.
Yeah,
he gets the glove.
Everybody gets one.
Yeah, you can have the empty glove.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
He's got the empty gauntlet. Insult to injury.
It's just so that he can throw it down at the beginning of the fight.
Correct.
In order to challenge him.
Correct. Slap him in the
Drop
face
it.
with it. He slaps him in the face.
I
Dink.
challenge you.
Yeah, just a big dink.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons that I took away his glove is because I don't feel like he needs it. He doesn't need his full power of his gloves to be an opponent to Darkseid, like a reasonable opponent to Darkseid. And the reason I say that is because some of his things that he has, obviously he's incredibly smart, which you don't really see in the MCU. Like you see that he's intelligent and stuff, but you don't see the amount of super high intelligence that he has.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that.
He clearly uses it too. But we'll get into it.
We'll dive into that a little bit later, rather. But one of the things that I find really interesting about Thanos is that he has kind of a humanistic side in the fact that he was raised on Titan. His idea to help with overpopulation, which is what they were dealing with.
And resources, because they were dealing with the lack of resources in an overpopulated planet.
And
they didn't have healthcare.
No.
imminent is the word I'm looking for. The imminent destruction of their planet, basically due to overpopulation and running out of resources.
Sounds familiar, huh?
He wanted to.
Gotta get out of here.
He wanted to wipe out half of the planet, and thus he was deemed a madman. So that's where you get the term Mad Titan. But he was doing it in this weird way of like trying to save his planet. So like that's why I say there's like this kind of human element to him where all he wanted to do was save his planet and it didn't work.
He just went about it probably the worst possible way.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to snap and everybody's gone.
It really sounds like you're trying to justify what he did.
Like mass murder. Yeah, no,
right,
I'm not at all.
Are you a Thanos sympathizer?
I am not, but we'll find out who's
He just
side
had some
I'm
good
on
ideas.
later.
That's all I'm saying. He just had some good ideas.
I don't know. Yeah, we'll dive into that. But but it's interesting. He has nigh invulnerability, which you're saying, well, what is nigh invulnerability? It means that he has like 99% invulnerability. He has almost
Complete
pure invulnerability, but there are a few weaknesses which we're going to dive into.
Just like Ant-Man's going to dive into.
The
Oh, he said it.
the Ant-Man theory.
He said the thing.
He said the thing. It's the thing. We will dive into Thanos a little bit more, just a little backstory. He did first appear in Iron Man number 55 in February of 1973. Also, fun fact, the first appearance of Drax the Destroyer, who,
Everybody's favorite.
spoiler for like a 30-year-old comic, Drax was the one who actually killed Thanos in the end, which is really interesting that they both appeared in the same issue.
It all comes back around.
The fighters are making their last-minute preparations, but before making their way into the arena, let's hear a word from tonight's sponsor.
Are you tired of your annoying boss? Pesky neighbors always complaining about your garden. Try the Snap from Infinity Gauntlets. 50% satisfaction guaranteed. Get yours now before they vanish.
Mr. Metatron has taken his place in the middle of the arena and is now standing by to introduce tonight's fight. Let's not waste any more time and send it down to him. Mr. Metatron, please take it away.
The following contest is a Planet for Planet match. Introducing first, from the planet Apocalypse in the DC Universe, representing the Secret Society of Supervillains and the Legion of Doom. He is New God, an arch-enemy of the Justice League, Darkseid. And his opponent, from the moon of Saturn called Titan in the Marvel Universe, representing Black Order and the Cabal, he is inevitable, the Mad Titan, Thanos!
Welcome to round one, where we focus on Darkseid. Jim, you want to kick us off?
Absolutely, I will. Yeah. Man, Darkseid is it's incredible. First of all, he's floating down to the ring, which is pretty cool. It's Thanos has got a high, tough hill ahead of him with Darkseid and everything that he kind of brings into this. We kind of touched a little bit on some of his stuff during the weigh-in. But he has a ton of other, we talked about taking away Thanos's Infinity Gauntlet. We kind of also took something away from Darkseid too that I'll probably is probably not a good time to talk about. But Darkseid has like his boom tubes that he usually uses to get from
like a father box.
Yeah, exactly, to get from place to place, or to send like his parademons or
So
things
we
of
have
that nature.
locked that away.
We have locked all that stuff away. So he is here. He's not going anywhere. He's not teleporting in and out. So kind of. But with that being said,
I get it. He has a dark side.
that was a weird placement for that. I get it. But like that was a weird placement for that joke. There was nothing to set that up.
It's my revelation. Chapter 1.
I don't know
So,
what to do with that information.
parademons.
Parademons. Well, I mean, so we can't really talk too much about it because, like, they both have, like, Thanos has the Chitauri,
Right.
Darkseid has the parademons, but this is not the center of the fight here.
It is interesting though because the people in the arena, like the fans that are attending this fight, because obviously we're in an arena in real life, and they are in for a treat because not only do they get to see Thanos and Darkseid go at it, but there is a chance that the parademons and Chitauri are just going to be fighting above them, and quite a sight to see.
Looking back on it, this may have made a really good lumberjack match, but we we chose otherwise. So something I really kind of want to get into while we have the time still for it is his Omega beams. I think is going to be kind of one of his biggest things here. That's going to go hand in hand with stuff like his high intellect. He's got a few other things too, like some telepathy stuff and telekinesis, but I don't know if that's really going to come into play here because Thanos is just too mentally sound for somebody like Darkseid to get into his head like that with telepathy. So I think his Omega beams is going to be his biggest weapon here against Thanos.
Yeah, it's like, when you have like these crazy overpowered characters going at it, it's crazy how quickly it just evolves into who can punch harder. Like they have all these powers, they have all these skills, they have intelligence, they have strategy, but really I think it's just going to come down to just slamming each other in the face.
Yeah, and whoever can take I think that's probably the best way to have put that. I like incredibly, like you just absolutely boil down this whole show.
I was going to bring up, you said his Omega beams are probably his biggest factor. I would factor also in his speed and reflexes. Just the fact that he's such a big dude.
Yes, but yes, I'll give him that. But and we'll go more into Thanos obviously in the second round here. But I kind of want to interject with that and say like Thanos, while he may not have like the quick like Dragon Ball Z style teleportation like Darkseid may have, but like exactly, he has still contended with somebody who can essentially teleport around him. So I don't know if his teleportation is going to get him a few licks in for sure. Like he's going to get a few good hits. But I think Thanos' biggest thing is he's going to maybe be able to use that in coalition with his Omega beams too.
You're talking Darkseid.
That's what I meant. Yes. You want to add that back in? Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt on that.
I was like, just say Darkseid and I'll plug it back into the
Darkseid. Just say it all with just like Darkseid.
It doesn't match
same audio every time you say it.
So every time it's just like Darkseid.
You messed up every single time. Plug in Darkseid.
I just talked about Thanos the whole time.
Oh, that's why he's called Darkseid. Is that he has a dark side.
So I want to, again, I'm not necessarily picking sides. I just want to kind of play the field even here and talk about, the good and the bad for both characters.
And the ugly. Mm-hmm.
And so one of the big things for one of the big weaknesses I think for Darkseid is going to be that his Omega beams are his strength, but they're also his weakness.
Correct.
Because if Thanos can find a way to direct them back at Darkseid, it actually weakens him quite a bit.
And we have seen how quickly that can be figured out. Because like watching in like most of like the DC animated movies and stuff like that was one of the first things in Justice League War when they were fighting like a defunct Justice League that has never worked together like a day in their life before. Most of them didn't know who each other was like before that, and they were able to quickly figure out that redirecting his Omega beams back at him like hurt him.
Yeah.
Like how fast is Thanos? Is he doesn't strike me as like a super quick person. Like he couldn't outrun the Omega beams in the way that Superman would loop back around.
The Flash and Superman were the only two that were able to actually outrun any. I don't think even Superman outran him.
But if he's got his glove, that's pretty reflective. So
I don't know.
I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Well, legit question though, because the glove is like forged in the heart of a star in the same way that Mjolnir.
This is true. I would imagine it would be more of something like it's not going to redirect the beam or bounce it off. It's more going to take the hit, and I would imagine him getting slid back. By it.
Because like we jokingly allowed him to just have the glove, but
that may be a huge thing for him. Yeah,
make a difference.
And punching with it.
But the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway here is, yes, his Omega beams are going to be his biggest strength, but it's also one of his biggest weaknesses too, because we've also seen, if you take out his eyes, he no longer has Omega beams. So, that's kind of also a big disadvantage. Exactly. So you just
that's the Three Stooges precedent.
Three Stooges. For anybody who for everybody listening, Carson just did the exact Three Stooges thing that I'm also miming right now too. But so just imagine that with two eyes and being poked through. But yes,
that would be hilarious if Thanos just walked up to him and he was like,
and Darkseid is like, you wise guy. I feel like everybody would be like, what is this?
Everybody's like, what the hell am I watching?
These are two of the baddest dudes in the universe.
Absolutely losing their shit.
These are two of the baddest dudes in the universe. There's a bunch of jokes.
We need a third Stooge. Throw Vandal Savage in there or something.
Oh god, dude.
One of Darkseid's big weakness is also that he's very kind of self-absorbed, if you will. He's very cocky.
He is.
And so that can lead to oversights, which he makes, which will lead to...
The same could be said about Thanos, though, right? Like,
I think
you can't be a megalomaniac without being also
having ego. Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to do my deep dive into Thanos here shortly. Unlike Ant-Man.
Who is also going to be doing a deep dive into Thanos.
That's a terrible joke. I need to cut that.
You started this.
So, big question I have for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Darkseid only fights people that he deems worthy. Would you feel like, obviously, Thanos is worthy to fight him?
Okay, so that's the biggest thing. One, yes. And two, you have to remember that this is the world of character fight night. So when you enter in this arena, you are going to automatically view the other person as a threat. This is something we've kept throughout the entirety of the show, whether it's tournaments, whether it's us, whether it's classic or anything like that. So yes, they will be viewed as a threat. So there is none of that. Like, well, he doesn't deem him worthy, so he's just gonna see you like, peace, you're not worthy. I'm taking your planet anyways.
I mean, regardless, like he's fought Justice League members that he probably didn't deem worthy. But if they're going to attack him, he's probably going to have to fight back.
Also that.
So
I might not find a mosquito worthy, but if I see it on my arm,
you're not going to be like, look at him and be like,
fisticuffs.
You're not worthy. You can have
I'm going to shoot.
blood.
I'm going to shoot it with my Omega beams.
Oh god, would you? Yeah. Just he pulls out like one of those like salt guns.
That's like the ultimate.
It's
like,
got Omega beam written in Sharpie on the side of it.
It's like the
I don't
ultimate...
even have to aim. It's just going to follow.
Do you guys have any other... one thing I did want to add about Darkseid is that he is, although he doesn't like to fight hand-to-hand, he is a skilled hand-to-hand combatant, right? So even though Thanos is going to have to... He doesn't really have a ranged game. He does kind of, and I'll get into that later. But
not to the level of what Darkseid has.
He doesn't have Omega beams or something that he can just sit back and he doesn't necessarily like to sit back. I think he's more of a
gets up in
on.
it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Darkseid can fly, right?
That's what
he can hover.
Yeah, he kind of hovers around.
And Thanos is mostly restricted
grounded.
Gravity.
Yes.
Yeah, he's
whether it's Earth gravity or any other planet gravity. That, he's stuck on the planet no matter what.
Yes. I don't know that could be a question for you guys listening at home. I don't know the altitude of Darkseid's flight, if he can legit fly in the air, or I've only seen instances where he kind of hovers off the ground.
And that's kind of
menacingly. Hands behind his back.
It's weird that I said menacingly hovers.
Yeah.
It's just...
Only here on Character Fight Night.
Yeah, I never thought I'd combine those words.
I think there's so much more that we're going to be able to get into with, and like the big chunk of this discussion is going to come from round 3 when we're talking these two characters, because
throw them in together. Yeah.
There's not really too much that we can say that isn't more surface level stuff about these two, kind of what we went over. So yeah, really the meat of the content is going to be in that third round when we can get into a little bit more.
So with that, we are going to finish up round 1, and that means that what comes after round 1? Round 2. Yay! So round 2, obviously,
thanks, Dora.
We've covered a little bit of Darkseid done a little deeper dive into some of his abilities and stuff. And we are going to move over to his opponent now, Mr. Thanos, which is what he told me to call him from now on. So Mr. Thanos.
Mr. Thanos
He
was
said,
my father.
yeah, please call me inevitable.
I hate this.
That was the best joke of it so far. We should just stop.
So here we go. So round 2, we're talking about Thanos, the Mad Titan. We're doing a little bit deeper dive into like his powers and stuff. Obviously, one of the things we covered with Darkseid, I'll get it right off the bat, is his Chitauri army that he is, he leads, he's in charge of, or whatever the case may be. That's not really going to be a factor again, but it is going to be kind of a neat spectacle just to see. I think, well, I'll save that for the fight, but I don't think it's going to be a factor. However, I think that there's going to be it's going to come into play. And I'll touch on that here in a bit in round 3. But you have Thanos. He has, we touched on superhuman intellect. He's extremely, extremely smart.
I think he's also incredibly tactful as well too, like way more so than I think Darkseid is, because he is way more about getting his hands dirty and like, fine, I'll do it myself. And he's got his like crew that he rolls with. I don't remember what they're called right now, but he's got like his lieutenants and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, when it needs to get done, he will go and do it himself. And I think he's got a lot more combat experience than someone like Darkseid does, who is just like a destructive force.
Well, like the entire like phase 1 and 2 of the MCU kind of feels like we're watching a chess game, but we're not seeing any of his moves. We're just seeing like the Avengers moves. Yes. And so it is definitely like, you see his maneuvers and his alliances and stuff, and he's always like strategizing. And so he's just this big menacing presence from like off camera that I think the first thing you see about him is his like strategy and like
absolutely, because this whole thing is like getting the collecting the Infinity Stones for him to actually use, because he obviously wants to be the one to do this, because we kind of talked about his ego a little bit. He has to be the one to follow through with this. This is his destiny. But yes, that's exactly right. We're seeing his side of the chess
like he sends board play Loki. Out. He sends like
his pawn. Yeah, he's got his pawns and his
pieces
knights and his
before he finally gets involved.
Correct. But when it's time to get involved, he is the one that's involved. He didn't send his lieutenants in to do combat for him. He went in and fought the Avengers.
Yeah, he's like,
himself.
Oh, it's kind of.
I'll take the Hulk. Don't worry.
I was like, they kind of took out his people too.
That is also fair. So it also did come to a point where he had to be the one to fight. But yes.
To go back previously to answer your question, it is called the Black Order.
Okay,
is the name of like his crew that follows him. Yeah.
But his hype men, they're like,
Thanos got this. What's up?
Well, those are his children, right? Like the children of Thanos, or is that not?
Not all of them. His children I know are Gamora and oh god, I'm spacing her name.
Nebula.
Thank you. Yes. But he's got
Corvus Glaive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought he refers to them, at least in the movie. That's my main source of knowledge. I feel like he.
Most people at this point is.
I was kind of just leading up to. I think that both of them tend to use their children a lot in fights. Like,
correct.
Darkseid has like a whole bunch of like, what does he call them?
I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember the name.
I want to say like the Harpies or something like that. But
so he also has his lieutenants and stuff like Steppenwolf and all those guys too.
Granny Goodness.
Yeah, but he sends them in to do a lot of the work that he doesn't necessarily want to do right away.
Is beneath
he
him.
wants exactly. Yeah. Whereas like I think Thanos is willing to do that same stuff. Thanos is like the boss you want to work for, because he will do exactly what he sends you out to do. He just, because he has somebody to do it, he'll send them out like Darkseid is really the one that is like,
I don't want to do that.
exactly like, you're lesser, you go do this. I don't want this.
Yeah.
That's beneath. Exactly. So, but that's kind of getting away a little bit from.
Since I guess I'm the fact guy here, I guess they changed the name of the group to Children of Thanos for the MCU.
Oh, okay.
So-
That makes sense. Yeah.
But
Okay.
same thing.
They
so
look nothing like him.
No, no family
they're
resemblance.
adopted.
Yeah, clearly
But
adopted and built.
I want to run back a little bit when you brought up his ego, and we kind of just touched on it with Darkseid too. Is his ego is kind of one of his big weaknesses, though, because he's very egotistical. He's very stubborn. So in this sense, he makes mistakes, and mistakes, especially in a fight with someone as powerful as Darkseid, or Darkseid as someone as powerful as Thanos. A simple mistake can cost you the fight.
Correct.
So I wanted to bring that up. I also wanted to bring up the fact that I kind of talked that Thanos has a ranged game that he doesn't use a lot. He's more of an in-your-face guy, but he does have psionic cosmic blasts, which are basically, now bear with me because that sounds very scientific.
Boring. No, I'm just kidding. That sounds awesome.
He can actually generate energy from his hands and eyes. So he has like a laser beam that comes out of his hands.
Oh.
Yeah, because he's essentially a celestial.
Oh.
Yeah,
he
or
uses
an
cosmic
eternal. Sorry,
energy.
not a celestial. He's an eternal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's part of like the eternal. I think he's like one of the lesser Eternals, but like which is kind of where his 9 vulnerability comes from.
He's a
Right.
cosmic being, right?
He's a cosmic being. He's really only affected. He's not affected physically. I mean, he can still bleed because we see him bleed and stuff like that. But like,
Still get his head cut off and everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, but what are you gonna do? No, but like magic is really his biggest weakness. So like anything, like any kind of magic attacks or anything, which is wild to me that they didn't just have
Yeah.
like Doctor Strange just go nuts. Like,
Yeah.
Well,
But yeah. Anyways, that's not good.
Sometimes
good
it feels to me
storytelling.
that like they definitely like have trump cards that they just conveniently ignore. Like Doctor Strange just being like, well, I looked in the future
there's
and out of the
only one
millions of
winning.
ways. It's like, I don't know, man.
It was you, a
have
human,
control
like,
over
dying
time.
to win this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, no, because that's right. Because he didn't have the time stone at that
Right,
point
no.
anymore. But
It's like
he
reverse
still
it.
has magic. But yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
whatever. This is not a breakdown podcast of the MCU.
So psionic cosmic blast. The last thing I was going to say about that is what differs. I think the big difference between that and Omega beams is the blasts are straight line, right?
Sure.
So-
As most are. Yes.
As most are, yeah.
They behave like most particles.
So obviously he's got, he would have to hit Darkseid head on instead of Darkseid kind of like sending his squiggly lines out and going wherever.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't know that about him, and I do feel like that evens the playing field by a lot. Like,
I think the biggest difference here is yes, it does, but we historically don't see him use that stuff nearly as much.
Yeah.
Not in the MCU. You see it in the comics a
That's
little bit.
fair. That is fair.
that's what I was assuming.
Okay, yeah, that's
So-
fair.
And then the other thing with the blasts is he actually hit Galactus with one of the blasts and it sent Galactus flying. So that just shows you the power of these like psionic blasts
Correct.
are incredibly powerful because you know how big Galactus is. He's a world eater.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to, I kind of, for lack of a better term, crapped on Thanos at the beginning saying he was like the underdog, and he is, but I really think he has a foot in this fight. And I don't know if that was the right term, but
He's an eye in this fight.
an eye in this fight? A
'Cause it
hand in this
shoots-
fight?
Yeah, because he shoots him from his eyes and hand.
Oh, there you go. He has a glove in this fight. But do you guys have anything you want to add on
yeah,
Thanos?
so I mean, we're also downplaying kind of something, not necessarily downplaying some of his physical ability, but we're just glancing over some of his physical abilities. So you talked about his eye beams being able to send Galactus, the world leader, flying. He did essentially the same thing with the Hulk, like,
Yeah.
with a punch. Like he, decked the Hulk and sent him flying. And there's not too many people that can say that they did that.
Yeah.
I
That
think
is
that
true.
the only person that's really been able to like stand toe to toe with the Hulk, at least in most common knowledge thing, is Wolverine.
Mhm.
Otherwise, most people just get decimated, dude.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I just read an article the other day that talked about how Hulk has the strongest skeletal system in like the whole Marvel universe, even stronger than Wolverine, which is wild.
Yeah.
Because all you hear about Wolverine is claws and adamantium.
Yeah.
Like skeleton and stuff. So, not that really plays into Thanos
Hulk
hitting him, but
is invincible. He is like, and the harder he gets, the harder he gets hit, the madder he gets. So, I'm sure when
he's pissed.
Exactly when Thanos did that, Hulk was probably pissed,
smashing. Yeah. He was probably smashing.
So I think plus that and being able to stop that and being able to stop Mjolnir like dead in his tracks, like again something that not really many people have been able to do.
Does that have to do with pure strength in that case, or is that more about like being worthy? Because I know Mjolnir is like it's heavy and
what would make him worthy though? Everything he's done would make him not worthy. I feel like because he only damn belt.
I know, yeah, but that is a good segue because we can talk about the worthiness of these two competitors in round 3 when we dive into the fight. But before we dive into the fight, let's send it over to Mr. Metatron for a fight update. Mr. Metatron, what are your thoughts on this fight so far?
These two comic book monsters are giving each other the business. Even though Darkseid is almost double the size of Thanos, Thanos doesn't seem to be going down without a fight. Darkseid makes Thanos look like a cruiserweight out there. All this action is unhinged and completely unhealthy for you to watch.
So with round 3, we actually throw these competitors head to head, and we actually talk about, we've touched on their powers. Now we're going to talk about how the powers would be used kind of against
like more kind of
offensively against one another, or we talk about how like their defense would deflect these attacks and stuff like that. And so one thing we kind of left off with on round 2 was talking about how Thanos stopped Mjolnir and talking about being worthy and stuff. Does that play into worthiness with Mjolnir? If you stop an attack, it's not lifting the hammer necessarily.
Yeah, because I was like, really, the only two people that were able to actually budge and wield Mjolnir is Captain America and the Hulk. We kind of talked about the Hulk a little bit, so it's like, but other than that, Mjolnir, from what we've seen, has not deemed anyone else worthy. And in my opinion, and I feel like in most people's opinions, I don't know, man. Killing half of your planet may not make you worthy of like Jack.
So you're talking about a battle of being worthy to just outright brute strength, being able to stop the hammer.
Correct. I guess think that's what it is.
I guess I was mostly thinking of like his motivation and stuff. I don't know for sure how Mjolnir makes its decisions, but he would consider himself worthy. But so would anybody, right?
But
that's not the point of it.
So did
but
Thor.
Maybe
Thor considered himself worthy at some point too, and Mjolnir just said no for a little bit. So he had to go through a whole first bad movie about how he became worthy again. Like,
well, we were talking about Young Justice earlier because we're talking about DC. There's an episode where like there's a sword that only reveals itself to the pure of heart, and instead of being like pure good, the guy decides to be pure evil, and so he gets the
But he was pure of heart.
So I think that's what I was thinking of, but it's probably not canonically how the hammer works.
I could also go back and defend my first iteration of Thanos when I was talking about him and talk about how like he has that human side.
It's a noble cause.
It's a noble cause, but it's jacked up.
Yeah. I think
completely.
But I think for the sake of this, because we've seen him again, Thanos like take on the Avengers and stuff like that. Almost, well, not all of them, but like, almost single-handedly in the movies and the
He's
comics.
dealt with multiple Avengers at one time.
Correct.
I mean, if not all of them.
Exactly. So, and like to see that, I think plays to his level of strength. And with that his tactfulness, like we talked about, I think outweighs what Thanos is going to be able to do. I think, or not Thanos, Darkseid. Sorry,
Darkseid,
the darker side. But I think he's going to play defensive a little bit at first to see what Darkseid is going to bring to the table in terms of what he's going to use ability-wise, as well as what he's going to do strength-wise, or what he's just going to do in general. Because Darkseid's not going to come out the gate swinging with his fists.
Yeah,
he's going to play with Thanos a little bit.
Yeah, I think they're both going to be testing each other a lot at the beginning of the fight.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be, throw a punch, but not expecting it to work, more expecting to see how the
just
other
kind of
reacts.
gauging, what your opponent has.
I would go so far as to say I don't even know if they would throw a punch for a while. I think there would just be this standoff.
I think
there'd be a
Thanos
lot of they try to out monologue each other.
Oh, absolutely.
There'd be a lot of shit
I think
talking.
ultimately Thanos is going to be the one to throw the first punch because one, his ego.
Darkseid doesn't want to.
Exactly. because to Darkseid, and I think this is going to be one of his downfalls, is to Darkseid throwing a punch is beneath him.
Yeah.
Like whereas like Thanos,
most of his fights that I see, his hands are planted
Yeah,
firmly
correct.
behind his back.
Correct.
Even in the Injustice fighting games, when you play Darkseid, until you throw a punch, he like walks around or he floats around with his hands behind his back.
I think Thanos is going to get
Dude.
this is going to get under Thanos' skin really quickly. Thanos is going to be the one to throw the first punch, and I think that's also where he's going to get his first hit. And he's going to get hit harder than he's expecting.
I don't know if this is what you're getting at, but I think that Darkseid thinking that Thanos might not be worthy is going to get under Thanos' skin.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
You know,
it
like,
is.
What? Oh, you mean I'm not worthy? We'll watch this.
Yeah.
I'll show you.
It's the ego that we were talking about, and but like Thanos is going to throw his first punch, probably not being as strong as he is intending it to be, just because it's again that kind of playing where
Like a
you're kind
test.
of exactly testing it.
Yep.
But then when he gets knocked across the arena.
It's going to get serious.
Correct. But I still don't think it's going to be a while before Darkseid throws the first punch.
For a drop of blood.
He's going to get hit with those Omega beams.
Yeah.
And those Omega beams hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because we saw what it did to Superman.
So I agree, but one thing that we didn't think of that Carson brought up, beforehand is the glove being reflective. I think that's a very, very valid point.
Or just not even reflective.
Being able to handle power.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right? Like,
Correct.
the Omega beams aren't stronger than an Infinity Stone, which is why the Infinity Stones aren't in this fight.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we're allowing just the empty glove as like a tool, then I think that's a good counter.
But
to
the glove is
Omega
still
beams.
like a celestial tool or something, right?
Yeah.
Like it's still
because it was forged
incredibly
in the
powerful.
was it forged
what
in the
you were
light of like a
saying.
dying star.
Yeah, the same place where Mjolnir was made.
And Stormbreaker.
Yeah.
As well too.
Yeah.
God, we're nerds, dude. What are we doing?
You guys host a podcast about
I know, but it's just I guess
fighting at
that was the thing that clicked where it's just like, dude, we are like some of the biggest nerds, like, but it's great. I love it.
Yeah.
So we talked about Thanos' attacks and stuff. I think that once Darkseid kind of makes, I don't know if you want to call it like makes the mistake of attacking Thanos, because then it's going to open that door of like, open that can of
I
whoop-ass,
think that's what Thanos
right?
wants too.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, I think Thanos is a worthy competitor. No pun intended. But
Well, when their agents arranged this fight, what did they tell them was going to be happening?
what agents?
That's a good question.
We
Well,
just
I
kind of
see-
kidnapped them and threw them into
Yeah,
an
right.
arena.
So you guys are more powerful than Thanos and Darkseid combined.
Money
Shut up!
shots,
They
man.
weren't supposed to know that. Yeah.
They're like, hey, come do this for the kids. It'll be fun. They're like, okay, yeah. Got nothing to do. But you have to think about the, like, just flat out power of Darkseid. Like, he crushed a Green Lantern ring with one hand. Just poof. He's not
Wait,
only
you said Darkseid?
Darkseid.
Okay, I don't know. In my head, I was looking up something, and I heard I was like, wait a minute.
Maybe
Thanos?
I said Thanos.
I was
It's
like,
been a
yeah,
lot
I
of
was
that
like,
time,
wait a
I
minute.
heard
so-
Darkseid.
I was like Thanos and a Green Lantern ring. I was like, wait a minute.
Maybe.
But, yeah,
What is that like hard?
yeah.
Some would say, yeah, I guess it's kind of difficult.
Sorry.
But not only does he beat the crap out of Superman, he's beat the crap out of multiple Superman across the multiverse or Supermen.
That's one thing that's kind of hard to shake in my like opinion of this fight is like I've seen Darkseid go up against Superman, who is sort of the epitome of like overpowered strength and like hold his own.
Superman is one of the 2 banned characters on Character Fight Night,
right?
For that exact reason.
And then Thanos like fights Captain America. It's just like
and the
movies, he does fight the Hulk. He
and
fights Iron Man, who has incredible technology.
They come up with like convenient excuses
ironically
for
enough,
like
he fights the Hulk in the Hulkbuster armor,
right?
In the movie, which was
that's why they come up with convenient excuses for like the Hulk not to be.
Correct, because they don't have a leg to stand up. But in the comics, I mean, he fights.
If he had been in the fight, I think that would have done a lot to like change that opinion of Thanos. But I can't help but just seeing him struggling against Captain America in that shot that they used in the trailer. And Steve Rogers is like holding the gauntlet or whatever.
The movie is a little
and again, I will say that like that is my main context. Right, so I'm sorry for not like bringing
no, that's
knowledge,
okay.
But
no, I mean he still does a lot. In the movie we see him like almost pick up Mjolnir and stuff like that. So there's nothing to downplay his strength even in the movies and stuff.
Granted, it could be argued, I guess, Vision sacrificed himself or whatever, but he did pull the stone out of Vision, and we've seen how powerful Vision is.
Yeah. So one of the
Thor is like kind of comparable to Superman, but Thor does like get the upper hand on Thanos multiple times in that series too.
But I mean, like with that argument, we can also make the same argument because it's the same kind of good versus evil fight that we see in every single comic book, every single movie, every single thing. Whereas like Darkseid himself has also gotten beaten by like Superman, and stuff like that. So it's like we can see like a one-on-one quote unquote weaker opponent than them has beaten them.
Right. Yeah, it's just one lens to kind of view through. It's not obviously like how I think in the scope
of this fight, I think where it's really going to come down to is the egos and the tactful minds that these 2 guys come in with, and I think they have a completely different mindset when it comes to fighting. One of them is, like I said, kind of just a brute force. He just like it's just destruction and chaos versus the other one is a little bit more tactful. He's going to kind of play the field. He's going to be able to move and dodge and
here's how I think the fight needs to go for Thanos. Right. Again, before I get into that, I want to give Mr. Inevitable the time of day here because I know we're kind of I don't want to say we're crapping on him or we're saying he's weaker.
No, I feel like
obviously he's not. Yeah, he's not. Just a scrub against Darkseid.
Right.
But I want to reiterate the fact that he attacked Galactus, who is like the size of a planet.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Exactly.
Yeah, I got to get that comic book
and
ridiculous strength.
And the fact that he fought Silver Surfer, who is a herald
of
Galactus, and fighting him has been said to be like light exercise. So having someone like that being a herald of a planet eater
bested the Fantastic Four and stuff like that. Yeah.
So that, and then
I don't think we've said anything here to downplay his strength.
Right. Yeah, I know. I just
reiterating.
I forgot where I was going with that.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Not sorry.
No, I forgot.
Just remember, dude.
I actually did.
Yeah. Oh, that worked.
So here's how I think the fight needs to go, though. But I think that Darkseid is going to be kind of in place for most of the match. I don't think he's going to move around much.
I don't think so.
I don't think he has to because he has that ranged attack. The Omega Beams are really going to be a big obstacle for Thanos. But I think that Thanos has to kind of stick and move.
Yeah.
He has to kind of like
Which
get
I
in.
think he can. Yeah.
Well, as a tactician, I feel like Darkseid will identify pretty early that his advantage is to not get into close combat with Thanos, right? His advantage is at a distance. So I think he'll be spending a lot of energy on trying to make sure that that distance stays there, and his ability to float and his ability to use the Omega Beams at a range will help him with that. It's, I think, then on Thanos' shoulders to get in close and make those attacks.
Do you think that if Thanos gets in close, Darkseid's in trouble?
Yeah.
Or the other thing, too, that we didn't talk about is we've talked about his tactful mind. I mean, Thanos is going to be very quick to realize where those Omega Beams come from.
Yeah.
And I kind of talked a little bit about it in the weigh-in of Darkseid. Is he is going to go for the eyes. I think really quickly, if he can get anything, like even if he takes off the gauntlet and just throws it and tries to nail him in the eye.
I mean, if he gets in that close combat and then it's just a bare knuckle brawl at that point.
And I think Thanos has a lot of advantages here that aren't on the surface necessarily. Wow, we finished
So
right at the bell ring.
with it's
almost
like,
like we
I
have-
was sitting there.
It's almost like we have control over when the bell rings.
So with that, that is going to round out our 3 rounds for this episode. And that's going to lead us into our final round, which is going to be our decision in kind of like 1 or 2 sentences of how you see the fight going, or just kind of an explanation of your choice in a sentence or 2, because we want to keep it a little short. So with that, let's transition into our final round of the night. So I will spearhead this if that's okay with you guys.
Absolutely.
I brought it up, and I like I said, I don't want to count Thanos out because I think that he is extremely powerful. I think his tactician mind is incredibly useful to him in this fight. However, I think the ultimate power of Darkseid is going to be a little too much for Thanos to overcome. And so therefore my choice is going to be Darkseid. Jim?
I disagree on a few different reasons. I am on the side of Thanos is such a tactful mind. He is so incredibly strong, and he is going to be able to know how to manipulate the combat enough and get where it needs to hurt and have the strength behind his punches. Plus, with the addition of the Infinity Gauntlets, Sands of Stones, is going to be just, I think, too much for Darkseid to be able to handle. So I think in this case, I'm on Team Thanos.
Carson, no pressure, but we're split decision here.
Yeah, do you need it? Let's get this man a bag.
Let me.
Oh, he's prepping.
I think I saw him put Jack in that earlier. It's about to get wasted to make this decision.
I came in pretty confident that I was going to choose Darkseid, but I think I have been convinced to go Thanos, simply because, I mean, for reasons that kind of go into just how characters often rip off each other, their power sets are incredibly similar and comparable. So I think it comes down a little bit to like attitude, and like we mentioned way early on, Darkseid isn't as much of a doer; he's more of an overseer, whereas Thanos is like down there getting rough and doing things himself. So I think when you pit the two against each other, I mean, it would be close. Any one thing could turn the tide of the fight, but I'm inclined to go towards Thanos just because I feel like he's got the attitude to get it done, whereas Darkseid just kind of expects it to be done.
So I want to ask one question before we wrap it up. Do you think that, I know we said that Darkseid is a skilled tactician or a skilled combatant, but do you think that because he doesn't engage in all of these combats and stuff unless he has to, that's going to be that was a big deciding factor for you guys? You think that Thanos is more hands-on?
Yes.
Like he has more fighting experience.
It's less the fighting experience and more the way that they use it, because Darkseid clearly has the fighting experience because he wouldn't be where he's at if he didn't, but it's how he uses it, and Carson was putting it in the best way. Thanos is much more of a doer and willing to work to get his results, versus Darkseid comes in expecting the results to be.
He's a good manager.
Referencing it multiple times where he usually is just standing with his hands behind his back.
Yeah.
I mean, like that projects confidence, but when you're going up against a ripoff of yourself or possibly the person that you were ripped off of, whoever came first.
I think they call that like an opposite or a mirror.
Yeah.
A mirror match?
Yeah. Then you can't afford to have that kind of cockiness. You got to be willing to acknowledge that your opponent is strong enough to beat you. And then I think Thanos would be like, oh, this guy's tough. I better pull out all the stops.
All right. Yeah, that's great. So we want to know what you guys have to think on this fight. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Character Fight. We'll be posting a poll in our Character Fight Night fan stand group where we want to hear what you guys have to say. Vote on the poll and comment underneath and tell us who was right and who was wrong and why. because I'm curious, because I'm obviously a sore loser. No, I agree. I think it's going to be an incredibly close fight. But you win some, you lose some, and I lost, and I will take my defeat and die on this hill.
It feels a little bit like the Dragon Ball or the Goku Superman fight, where it's like, oh, who really would win? Well, I mean, the truth is,
Everyone
the
would
fight
lose.
fight wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So, also want to throw out that we have a second show on the channel called CFN Tournaments, where we do live debates, tournaments, and hosted by our good friend Faith and produced by Ty. So go check that out as well. I think that's going to do it. So good fight. We'll see you in the next one. I want to thank Jim and Carson and Mr. Metatron for
And I want to thank you
being
guys.
here.
This was really fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
I love an
It was great.
opportunity to just argue about stuff that doesn't matter. I love it. It's my favorite thing to do.
This is the most important argument in the world.
To us.
That's going to do it for this episode. For Jim, Carson, Wade, and myself, of course, this has been CFN Recharged. Thank you for joining us. And remember, let your characters do the fighting for you. See ya.
Want more fights? Follow us on social media, Instagram and Twitter @CharacterFight, and Character Fight Night on Facebook. Use hashtag #FollowTheFight on all social media platforms. Want more action? Join the Character Fight Night Fan Stand Facebook group, where we post polls and have discussions on all fights.